Met my old man, old Mav. He's well, I don't have it on here, but he's the face of Black Warrior Gun Dogs. So yeah. Well, one of the biggest questions I get on Instagram and Facebook is how often should I feed my dog and when should I feed my dog that during duck season. And let's go over that. We got a few things that are variables there. That's how old your dog is, how often you work your dog, and how often you're hunting. He's completely deaf, so everything's done by hand signals right now. Being 14, we gotta kind of go slow. There you go. Come on. That's the importance of hand signals. When they get older, you can still talk to them. Okay, so Maverick's being 14. We feed him something that's high in fiber, low in fat, midway in carbs, low in protein. It's going to have glucosamine and chondroitin in it for his joint health, bone health. What you want to make sure with these older dogs is just the fact they don't get overweight. Overweight older dogs tend to have arthritis issues. They have all kinds of other issues that can happen just because of how much you feed them. Their diet is more important now than it has ever been because you want them to live as long as they possibly can. A hunting dog, a working dog, needs a different kind of diet than, say, a pet at home. You're going to feed this dog based off what he's doing. So a dog that's training or working in the field or hunting is going to have to use a lot of energy. They're going to have fuel. And if you think of I call it the 12-hour rule. Working dogs use that energy from 12 hours ago. So the feeding from 12 hours ago is what we're using on a hunt. So if you feed at 6 p.m., they're going to be using that fuel at 6 a.m. The amount of carbs, the amount of fat, the amount of protein, that is what you're looking at when you're feeding these hunting dogs, these working dogs. You want to see a high fat, a high carbohydrate. The proteins, moderate. Everybody harps on protein. Protein's kind of one of those things that, yes, it's important, but carbs and fat are what they really truly use when they're on a hunt. The hydration issue there as well on a hunt is one thing you got to also take into consideration. When you go out of town or if you're duck camp, dogs don't drink enough. Hydrating the food, floating the food is one thing that I truly stress, especially when you're on a trip. They're not drinking enough water. You take that food, you put some water on it, let it soak for a little while. The dog's getting hydrated when they're eating. That is what most people miss when they're on a hunt. So when we look at hunting dogs and their diet, we want to make sure that they're getting ample amounts of food for energy and also ample amounts of water. The amount of food you feed them should directly relate to how much they're getting worked, their body weight, the breed, all that goes into factors there. The amount at one period of time. So I'm big on feeding once a day in the evenings and trying to make sure that we're hydrating the dog food. Oh. So we're in duck season and we're starting our training regiment here at Black Warrior Gun Dogs. So our feeding schedule is a little bit similar to what it would be during hunting season. But let's say our average dog owner that's going home from duck season and their dog's going to go inside with them and hang out, their feeding schedule and what they feed is going to completely be different from what I'm doing. Most of the time, you go home, you put your stuff up, the dog gets on the couch, and they're hanging out with you the rest of the year. So we want to think about that. Their energy, their carb intake, their fat intake, that all needs to change. So we need to not completely change their diet, and we don't need to completely go off the wall here, but we do need to think about the amount we're feeding them, the diet we're feeding them, and what they're doing. So we're here training right now. It's picking up. We've got all our gun dogs coming in from duck season. So our guys we're feeding like we do during duck season. We watch the dogs, we watch how they look, and we want to make sure they're getting ample amounts of food and what they need to be able to perform throughout the day. But if we're at home and the dog is on the couch, we need to probably think about that. So if there's a maintenance diet out there, depending on what you're feeding, that might be something you need to consider. Now, hydration. We talked about hydration during hunting season. That's really important during the off season, but most of the time, our regular at-home dogs are not going to need hydration in their food. They're going to drink ample amounts of water. Here, where we're training, we make sure that our dogs always have water, but we still hydrate the food. It's just always good to hydrate the food. Digestibility is there. Consumption, they want to eat it faster. It just makes it to where they digest it better. So when we feed here, we're going to feed once a day. We're going to make sure we're watching the dog, make sure the body weight looks good, they're performing to their maximum amount, and then also, as at home, you need to do the same thing. They're going to be probably a little bit less active, but we're still going to want to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. So let's look at a maintenance diet at home. Let's look at how often you're feeding them. We don't want to see ample weight gain. We want to see a maintained weight. We don't want to see hips. We don't want to see backbone. We want to see, ribs. Sometimes ribs are okay to see depending on the dog, but we don't want to see too much. We don't want to see a bloated dog. We don't want to see an overweight dog. So especially during the summertime, you're looking at a lot of other issues there when you get overweight, especially when you try to get ready to go dove hunting during dove season. So if you can maintain that good weight balance, that good food balance throughout the spring and summer months before hunting season comes in, you'll have a really, really well-rounded dog before you start hunting again.